This week on the Men at the Movies podcast, we talk about the 1984 movie Karate Kid. In Daniel, we see ourselves, a flawed individual who longs for a mentor to help make sense of the world we live in. But without a battle, there's no need for discipleship. We see that the real enemy isn't Johnny Lawrence, but his teacher. Mr. Miyagi has a father's heart for Daniel as he prepares him for the fight. But again, like Daniel, we must understand that discipleship and training may look a lot more like household chores. Pick up your car wax, practice your crane kicks, and let's discover God's truth in this movie.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story, the story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being. Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name's Paul McDonald, and joining me in January in 2022, we made it to the new year. Woo-hoo. This is the first episode we're recording actually in the new year. So on the other end of the microphone cord and my headphone cable is Britt Mooney. Hey, man.
What's up? Merry New Year, as he said in Trading Places. Yes.
Now you're confusing people. We're not doing Trading Places today.
We're not doing Trading Places.
We always bring in music and quotes from other movies. And it gets confusing.
That's my life. It's just constant. That's what I do. No, man, it's been a great holiday. And as we were talking, it's kind of a weird holiday with some COVID and family drama. I know nobody listening to this podcast has ever had.
What's this COVID stuff you're talking about? I haven't heard of it.
Or family drama for that
What's
matter.
Family drama? Everybody, it's always holidays.
It's always perfect.
So we knew that, right? We said, hey, let's prepare for this holiday time. So this is actually the first time Britt and I have recorded together since before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So we are back. We're back in the saddle. We're back recording.
That's right.
Fresh hearts, fresh bodies, fresh minds, fresh all over the place.
I don't know how fresh I am, but I'm definitely here. I'm definitely in. I'm excited, man. It's been a busy time. Been a lot of opportunities that have come my way in the last couple months. So just trying to manage some of that without, being overwhelmed or overcommitting and all of that sort of stuff. So it's good though.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but the opportunities that he's had, he's got a new today, as we're recording on January 5th, he's got a brand new devotional on YouVersion. What's the name of it for guys who want to look it up? I'll have the links on the resources page.
It's called God's Adoption for the Fatherless, and it goes into the orphan spirit, which we talked about during the Top Gun episode.
Yep.
And it kind of goes through the 5 aspects of the orphan spirit and the lies that the enemy tries to tell us to make us feel like orphans. Even people who might have both of their physical parents and were raised by both parents, the enemy still tries to make us feel like orphans and alone and fatherless in this world. And so, but God's dream is family. And so it goes through the truth of how God adopts us into his family and why that's important.
And that's interesting because as we talk about this a lot, the fact that there's this truth in these movies, the best stories, truth is hidden from people during the movie, and the best movies are the ones where the truth is revealed at the end and lives are changed and you're transformed and you live according to the truth and not according to the lies.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly.
He's also doing stuff about movies. What is it? You're doing another devotional for Raiders of the Lost?
There's another devotional coming out on inspiration.org. And by the time this comes out, it'll be kind of finishing up. But you can go to inspiration.org and it's on Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's called Treasure Seekers, How to Be a Treasure Seeker.
Yeah.
and using Raiders of the Lost Ark. So if you listen to the episode that we did, there's a lot in there that is similar. And so, yeah, just having an opportunity to kind of write that out a little bit and use that content in another place. And hopefully people are blessed. We'll see.
And this one's super cool. You did something on Shrek where it's family movie night? More than a movie night. You're working on it.
Yeah, that's due in March. But I'm working on that as a family movie night. And that's a book we should write. We should come up with about, I don't know how many movies, but we should come up with a few movies and do our own family movie night sort of book. We should do that.
That sounds good. Well, describe what's family movie night.
Well, it's just where I think it's a website or they sell this material. Basically what you do is you watch the movie, there's a little review, you have to write up a review, and then you write up some activities to do with your kids. So you watch it with your kids, whatever movie it is. And then there's questions or activities and crafts or something where you do some stuff with your kids and to kind of, again, help your kids see that there's more to movies than just entertainment, that stories have meaning. And, my kids have already been brainwashed in this way. And, I even stopped Cobra Kai, as we'll get to it. I even stopped Cobra Kai the other night in the middle of it and said,
"That's tell expert me why level transitioning right there."
Right. Nice. And I said, why is this good writing? And how would they have done this in a lazy way? Why is this good writing? And so we took 30 seconds, but it helped them to see there's obstacles and there's struggle, and they didn't just make it easy on the character or whatever it was, And so, but not everybody does that with their kids like I do. And so anyway, but yeah, I'm excited to do that. Maybe I'll get to do some more, but I like the idea of that. I've always liked the idea. I've already done it with my kids, so it would be interesting to do it.
Well, and it's interesting because you'll be able to take your experience with your kids, what worked, what didn't work, obviously chuck out the stuff that didn't land with them and say, hey, this resonated with my kids. This made a difference.
Right. And
you're exactly right. That's one of the visions for the future is after I get done with the book I'm working on, Unlock Your Story, you can download the intro and first chapter at unlockyourstory.org. It's walking through the hero's journey of how the movies we love reveal the key to our future. And don't worry, this podcast isn't one giant commercial. We're just sharing stuff we're excited about. But yeah, definitely the next vision that we have is, well, how can we do that as fathers? How can we engage our kids, watch these movies? As you mentioned, you're doing Shrek. I'm watching movies with my grandchildren now, my grandson and granddaughter. They're 2 and 3, and so they love Moana or Encanto, or I'm not sure how Halloween Before Christmas works or The Nightmare Before Christmas works. My 2-year-old loves that one.
It is good. I actually like that movie a lot. My wife does not, but
maybe we'll do that. We'll do that one for our Halloween this year.
Ooh.
It's less than the slasher flicks. We'll do that and a slasher flick just to make you happy.
Or whatever. Yeah, whatever.
All right. So now we've gotten all our listeners caught up on the stuff that we're doing and some of the vision for the future for the podcast and for the website and all this other stuff. So let's kick back into The Karate Kid. Came out in 1984. Wow. One of those classic 80s movies. But Britt, so I wanted to start with a couple things. So what is it about these 80s movies about having their high school kids hang out with old loners? Think of, you got this one, right? He's hanging out with an old fix-it guy from Okinawa. You've got Back to the Future, whereas as John Mulaney talks about, he's hanging out with a disgraced nuclear physicist. Whereas if you actually did this today, hey, Mom, if your son said, yeah, I'm going over to Doc Brown's house, or I'm going to go hang out with Mr. Miyagi and he gave me a car, that would raise some red flags.
Maybe. I think so. But I think that it's not so unique, really, to the 80s. I mean, I think the way they did it in the 80s was unique to that time period. But I mean, you had Gandalf with Frodo. I mean, you had Obi-Wan Kenobi with Luke Skywalker. You had, I mean, the idea of the older mentor wizard. And Miyagi is the wizard in this movie. He is the older wizard. He is the Gandalf. And so that trope, as it is, that device is there, and it's there, but it's important that you bring it out because it's there for a reason. Like we talk about these universal elements in stories. And if it comes up again and again, we should say, well, why is this important? Why does this keep coming up? And it's because we, especially young men, but all of us, we long for a father. We long for a father who will mentor us, have relationship with us, not just as an authority figure, but as a real relationship, as a real father-son relationship. And that's, I mean, spoiler alert, that's what Daniel gets out of this movie, right? I mean, that's even at the core of what a lot of what's going on in Cobra Kai. A lot of what's going on is father ideas, and Daniel has lost his father figure in Miyagi because all of that sort of stuff. And so now he's trying to reconnect that to young people, and so they bring the young people in. And so all of that to say is that's one of those things in literature and in movies that we see time and again, that there's something we all long for. We all long for someone who can help us make sense of the chaos that we live in. Someone who can come in, someone who's gone before us, and someone who takes interest in us and will say, hey, let me help you through this. And not in a just do what I say, but really walk through it with us. And God's given us family for that very reason, right? And, man, woman, children, like you're going to pass this on. That's how it's meant to be. And so it's kind of weird, especially Back to the Future is the weird one. I mean, that's the weird one to me. I mean, it's just kind of like, who is this? Who lets their kid like just, but he is kind of the youngest maybe. And so
he just gets lost in the
shuffle. What the youngest one, like he's just like whatever. They'll survive, right? He'll survive. But it's even in Home Alone, right? The older gentleman that he's first as a villain, at least seems like it. He seems scary, but ends up saving the day. Spoiler alert. And all of that to say is
you're ruining all these 80s movies.
I'm ruining them all.
So we do have to sort of table set. We are going to wrap in a little bit of Cobra Kai because it's as Britt has said, it's fantastic writing. It advances the story. It adds a third dimension to these characters, and that's what we really love about stories. But lately, and maybe not even lately, there's some controversy about who is the Karate Kid, who is the hero of the movie. And to kick this off, I'm going to pull a clip from a TV show, from How I Met Your Mother. And in that show, Barney, who's played by Neil Patrick Harris, he loves Karate Kid, but for him, the hero of this story is Johnny Lawrence.
The Karate Kid was an uplifting 80s classic about a teen played by Ralph Macchio who defeats the local jerk played by William Zabka. At least that's how most people saw it.
Here he is, the Karate Kid!
Barney, it's Ralph. Listen, it's always flat.
No! I hate Ralph Macchio. I hate him. He is not the Karate Kid. The Karate Kid was William Zabka, star pupil of the Cobra Kai dojo, whom this monster defeated with a cheap, illegal head kick in the most tragically haunting film ending of all time.
Oh, see, I thought you meant fun crazy.
Shut it, Ralph Macchio.
Hey, Karate Kid's a great movie. It's the story of a hopeful young karate enthusiast whose dreams and moxie take him all the way to the All Valley Karate Championship. Of course, sadly, he loses in the final round to that nerd kid. But he learns an important lesson about gracefully accepting defeat.
Wait, when you watch The Karate Kid, you actually root for that mean blonde boy?
No, I root for the scrawny loser from New Jersey who barely even knows karate. When I watch The Karate Kid, I root for the Karate Kid, Johnny Lawrence from the Cobra Kai dojo.
So as I watched this movie, I pulled some scenes in my mind. Here is how Daniel is maybe not the hero we all remember. First, he sucker punches Johnny on the beach. He's the first one to punch Johnny on the beach. He gets tripped in soccer. Yes, it was intentional, but you see people in soccer get tripped all the time without fighting the person who tripped them. He's got an anger issue. If he had just minded his own business on Halloween, things would have worked out great with Allie with an eye. But no, he has to go pour water on Johnny's head. Then he causes a wreck in the parking lot as he's running away from Johnny. He sneaks into the kitchen, health violations in the clubhouse.
Health violations.
He ditches his mom on his birthday. On his 16th birthday, he leaves Mr. Miyagi's house. He's like, I got to go see my mom. But then he goes to the arcade to see Allie. Never sees his mom with the surprise cake. They stole the black belt from the registration guy. Granted, that was Mr. Miyagi. And then they lied to the officials to get his girlfriend to come on the floor with Mr. Miyagi. They're like, oh, he was not a great guy. And what does Johnny do? As he's dancing with Allie in the country club, he says, I want to make a truce. On the beach, he says, I just want to talk. And she wouldn't talk to him. And he shows great sportsmanship at the end because he said he gave Daniel the trophy and showed great grace in defeat.
Right.
So are we sure Daniel's not the villain in the story?
Well, so I actually agree with some of that. But here's the thing is that they had to give Daniel flaws to redeem him, right? So yes, I agree that to some degree he was, but I will definitely agree that Johnny Lawrence was not the villain. The villain in the movie is the other sensei,
John Kreese.
John Kreese. He is the actual villain, because when you see the look of disappointment and horror that Johnny gives him when he says sweep the leg,
yeah.
And which means you don't believe in me. You don't believe in me. And it goes back to what I said before. We all long for those mentors who just believe in us, who tell us you have a gift and I'm here to help you discover that gift. And for him to not have that crushed him in that moment, that was actually good acting. It was a really amazing moment. And
when you watch Cobra Kai, which is basically Karate Kid 30 years in the future, you get a glimpse of the emotional and physical abuse that his sensei did to him. Because you can see the trauma, and it's some really chilling goosebump storytelling and acting in those scenes as he relives the trauma, as he relives the abuse of his childhood, as he's this loner kid looking for validation, and then he gets it. But it's again it's classic abuser mentality and treatment. Mm-hmm.
Well, that he got from his stepfather originally. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, they do such a great job. Again, and it was Cobra Kai. If you like, obviously, if you're listening to this and you love Karate Kid, you've been watching Cobra Kai because
if not, you should be.
Every time I watch it, they do such a great job developing, especially Johnny Lawrence's character. The way that they give us flaws, and he's got his issues, but we still root for him, and it's so well done. And so anyway, but it's great.
And it's very similar to what we talked about with Heat, where that was a movie where they They were faced with the truth. The truth was revealed. They knew it, but they still chose to live according to a lie. There was no transformation of the characters in that movie.
Right.
Even in this movie, you see a transformation both in Daniel-san and in Johnny Lawrence. But I completely agree, because if you watch it, you'll see that typically Johnny is responding to the peers around him or his sensei in a very negative fashion. So that is probably all we're going to talk about Johnny Lawrence. But he's an important character. He's the antagonist. He's sort of the foil that spurs the action. Because honestly, when you first start watching the movie, Daniel is not likable. He's griping about going to California. He's kind of selfish and self-absorbed, and he's angry because life doesn't look like how he wants it to look. He's like, I want to be back home. I want to be, in New Jersey. And he gets here and he's miserable. And the pool sucks. The faucet's breaking, and he's miserable. But there's an important thing that Britt, we were engaging in emails and talking beforehand. This very key piece, and I think it's especially important as we look at this new year, as we've talked about Dune and training and preparation and fear, and we talked about heat and what are we chasing, what choices are we making, and the fact that there's no reason for discipleship without a battle.
Right.
And if Daniel doesn't have a conflict with Johnny, he doesn't have a need for Mr. Miyagi.
Right. And just to kind of bring us into this kind of full circle as we get into that part of it, it was by intention that we see Daniel, and he has a single mom. So his father is absent. So It goes all the way back to the devotional. Like, we didn't plan this, by the way, but it goes all the way back to the devotional that we just talked about, that's on YouVersion, and the trope or the pattern, as you will, of the wizard, the older mentor, because the father is absent in Karate Kid. And that's what we deal with. We're in a world of chaos, and we feel that God is absent. Where is he? I don't hear him. I don't see him. I can't feel him. He doesn't talk to me. He doesn't help me. Like we have all this stuff that we feel. I'm not saying all of that's true. I'm just saying that's what we feel. That's how we feel. And that's where we see Daniel in the beginning, is that he is fatherless in reality. And at least that we see, right?
Right.
And now he's being thrown into, we add to it that he's a fish out of water, so he starts out fatherless, but there he finds himself in a fight, and maybe 80% by his own doing, right?
Kind of brought it on himself.
But so do we. We do the same thing. This is a misconception about writing. You don't have to have a likable character. You have to have an interesting and relatable character. You don't have to be likable. Now, they do give us a save the cat moment early on with the old lady, and there's a couple things that he does. They give us a little save the cat moment to let us know he's not a complete a-hole, right? He's not a complete jerk. However, he's obviously angry, but that's us, man. We bring it on ourselves, and then we blame God. We're like, well, fine. What was the movie that we did where he says, Lethal Weapon, be mad at God, be mad back, right? It works for,
and even Wonderful Life, because he's like,
right.
He gets punched after praying to God. He's like, oh, that's the thanks I get for praying.
But he's the one who cussed the guy out. Like,
that's
he's
just,
the one.
That's just the consequence of your actions.
It's the consequence of your own action. Jordan Peterson said this recently in a video. And if you don't know who Jordan Peterson is, he's an author and speaker, philosopher, psychologist. But he talks about how over 20, 30 years of being a psychologist, he's never seen anyone get away with anything. He says, people come to him and they have these problems. He says, every time I start tracing back, and at some point in the past, they perverted truth. Reality. They twisted reality. They tried to bend reality to their own making. He said, and it always snaps back. It might take 10 years. It might take 20, but he goes, no one ever gets away with anything, even in this life. Reality will snap back to itself. You can't bend reality to yourself. And so, but then it makes us angry. We're like, well, where is all this coming from? I've never had this before. And we need fathers. This is why we have fathers. We need fathers to say, don't go that way. That'll hurt you. We need fathers who are looking out for us. And that's the longing that we have, because we know that there's stuff that we don't know, right?
Right.
Here's what we know. We know that there's stuff we need to learn, and we need somebody to teach us. Who's the YouTube guy? There's a YouTube guy who's gone viral, and all he does is get on YouTube and teach stuff that a father should teach his son, how to change the oil and how to change a tire and how to, open a bank account and do like how to ask a girl out. Like, that's all he does on his YouTube channel. And it goes viral. And the same reason Jordan Peterson has gone viral is because he talks about the rules of life and ways to live. And young men just soak it up. And that's who Daniel is in the beginning. He needs a father. He's angry and he's lashing out and he's blaming everybody else, his mom, the teachers. It's everybody else's fault, right? And I'm the same way. I'm just sorry. I mean, like, I can't. Yes, he's not really likable, and we can say he's the villain, and it's kind of funny, right? It's really funny. But at the same time, I can't really judge him because I've done the same thing. And I still have those moments where something happens and I'm like, really, God? I thought, whatever, like I deserved something or whatever. I do the same thing.
Well, it's very similar to the older son and the prodigal. All these years I've slaved for you, and this is how you repay me, a party for this younger brother of mine. I do think it's interesting. So this idea of, because as we get into the really the Miyagi and Daniel dynamic, because that's really the key in the heart of this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, it was interesting when they go to the apartment and it's a dump. And the faucet's not working. And it's the broken faucet that forces him to go find the fix-it guy. Like, if he doesn't have the broken faucet, he's not forced to go. If he doesn't go to California, he's not forced to find his father figure that is lacking, that he needs, and he doesn't even know he needs it.
Oh, that's so good, dude. I love that. I love that it was brokenness that had him even try. Right. It was brokenness. And sometimes we blame God for the brokenness too, but sometimes God allows the brokenness for a reason. He's like, maybe this will drive you to truth. And I can't remember the order, but I think it was at the first time he meets Mr. Miyagi or somewhere in there when he comes to the apartment and he's training karate from a book.
Yeah.
And this is important for the movie and for our discussion, is that so often modern discipleship is read this book. Now, I am an author and I love books, but you will not be mentored by a book. You will not find a father in a book. Now, I have read some amazing books and I can tell you my top 5, and yes, you should read them. But I'm telling you, it's the men and the women in my life that have made the difference, that have taken time with me from when I was a kid and put up with me to when I'm 40 years old and put up with me, right? I still have a mentor that I called and we went through today and told each other we love each other. I still have those people in my life, people who have gone before me, and I can ask them questions, right? So it's always relationship. And what a lot of modern, especially American Christianity, tries to do is make it about education and information. And that's not what Jesus did. He said, follow me. He didn't say, come to my class.
Yeah.
He said, follow me, hang out with me, and this is what you'll become. That's exactly what Miyagi ends up doing. But the initial introduction is, oh, you're doing this from a book?
You can't
Like-
learn karate from a book. And this is going to take us, I think, into our first clip, because we see that Miyagi is, I wrote down, he's a guy who fixes things. He's a trainer. That's what he said about the bonsai trees. I trained them to grow that way.
Yeah.
But as Daniel keeps saying, where did you learn that from? Father teach me.
Right.
Father taught him how to fish because he's a fisherman. Father taught him karate. Father taught him bonsai trees. Well, Daniel doesn't have anybody to do that. And so he gets to the point, this is after the Halloween party, where Daniel dumps water and then gets his butt kicked by the fence. And then Miyagi jumps the fence, kicks all the Cobra Kai. He rescues Daniel. And he's sitting there. I think he's probably messing with a bonsai tree or whatever. Daniel asks him, have you ever taught karate? And he says no, because he didn't have a son to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so Daniel keeps pressing him because he sees a need, even if the motivation is a bit misplaced.
Hey, you ever taught anyone?
No,
Well, would you?
depend.
On what?
Reason.
How's revenge?
Daniel-san, you look revenge that way. Start by digging to grave.
Well, at least I have company, right?
Fighting always last answer to problem.
Oh, no offense, Mr. Miyagi, but I don't think you understand my problem.
Miyagi understand problem perfect. Your friend, all karate student, eh?
Friend? Oh, yeah. Those guys.
Problem attitude.
No, problem is I'm getting my ass kicked every other day. That's the problem.
Because boys have bad attitude. Karate for defense only.
That's not what these guys are taught, man.
I can see. No such thing, bad student, only bad teacher. Teacher say, student do.
Oh, great. That solves everything for me. I'll just go down to the school and straighten it out with the teacher. No problem.
Now use head for something other than target.
I was only kidding about that.
Why kidding?
Because I get killed if I show up there.
Get killed anyway.
Would you go with me?
No, can.
Why? You said it was a good idea, right?
For you, good idea. For me, good idea, no get involved.
Oh, but you already are involved. I mean, you...
Very sorry.
What? Oh, thanks for nothing then, man. Thanks for nothing. Like I didn't have enough problems already. Now I gotta carry your weight too. Thanks. Don't do me any more favors, okay, pal?
And we know Mr. Miyagi will come back and help him out. But it's what we were saying earlier, that maybe Johnny Lawrence and the Cobra Kai weren't necessarily the big bad guys in the movie, but the teacher. There's no such thing as a bad student. Teachers say, students do. And what were they learning? Like he said, like Mr. Miyagi, karate is for defense. Well, Cobra Kai was learning strike first, strike hard, no mercy. When I heard that, I wrote it down because I'm like, that's the way of the world. That's the pattern that we're being taught right now.
Yes.
Is if you want to get ahead, if you want to get yours, if you want to succeed in life, you will strike hard, strike fast, no mercy. You've got to work harder. You've got to do more. You've got to burn the candle at both ends. You've got to buy more. Somebody was telling me about these big houses out in the rich section of town, but he said all they have is living room furniture because they can't afford bedroom furniture.
House poor. Yeah.
But that idea of strike first, strike hard, work harder, do more, push yourself is not really what Jesus teaches when you look at the Sermon on the Mount.
Turn the other cheek. And
yeah, it's about turning the other cheek. It's about seeking first the kingdom of God and everything will be added. It's about putting the needs of God. It's about casting your burdens. Give me your burdens. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. It's amazing how much in the Bible there is about you will find rest for your souls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether that's in Jeremiah, where it's about walk the ancient paths and you'll find rest for your soul. Psalm 23, find rest for your soul. And even in Jesus speaks, you'll find rest.
Yeah.
Which is not really what the world teaches us these days.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and just quickly, I've been teaching at my church, is kingdom rest is active. You know, our idea of rest is doing nothing, but kingdom rest is active.
Not a chair on the beach with a Mai Tai.
No, that's not kingdom rest. Kingdom rest is I do what I see my Father do. I say what I hear him say. Like Jesus was active, but he was always at rest. But all that to say is that there's a couple of different things here that is so good. Number one, the motivation of Miyagi is compassion. And that's an important element to this story, is that what pulls Miyagi into the story is he sees a need and he tries to meet the need. The first thing was with the bike. He fixes Daniel's bike. And that compassion begins a conversation. That compassion pulls Daniel just a little bit into Miyagi's world, which at that point is just his office in the apartment complex.
Yeah.
But that's when he's introduced to the bonsai trees. And one of the first things that Miyagi teaches him is there's a gift inside you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do I do this? Look inside you. You see what I mean? Like, but it's compassion that pulls him in to the story. And it's compassion that keeps him going with it, right? Because Daniel's like, well, oh, you want me to just go by myself? Like I'm getting my butt handed to me here and I'm outnumbered. And Miyagi at the end of that scene, I think, right, he goes, fine, I'll go with you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But here's what Miyagi is trying to teach Daniel how to do. He's trying to teach him how to be a peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah, well, let's go talk with him. Let's go talk.
I'll get killed. Getting killed anyway. There's no downside.
Yeah. Right? But let's be a peacemaker. And the other side of this that we haven't touched on with the mentor wizard trope is older men also long for somebody to pass things on to. Here's why that trope works in literature, because you have just reached every generation with their longing. There's a generation that longs for mentors. And even as an older man, you remember your mentors and you long, even if you never had one, you wish you had one. Right. So you can be 70 years old. If you never had a father, you long for the fact that maybe you should have. Right. And then if you're an older man, you've lived life, you've learned lessons, you've struggled, you've overcame. Who do you give this to? You're getting towards the end of your life. Was it for nothing? It's not for nothing if I pass it on. I mean, that's just in a worldly sense. But this is discipleship. This is what we are given in the kingdom. Both of those longings in the kingdom is the Great Commission. Go out and pass it on. It doesn't stop with you. And so Miyagi has also longed because he lost a son. Mm-hmm. And so he has always longed for a son. And so that is starting to awaken in him as well. And that's why it's such a beautifully written movie.
Yeah. For as much as we think Daniel needed Mr. Miyagi needed Daniel as well. They're both incomplete without the other.
Right.
So as we know, they go standoff with the teacher. We see definitely the clash of titans there. What happens next as the training begins is it's just like Yoda and Luke, where he's like, do or do not, there is no try. And they get ready and he's like, we are about to enter into training. Are you ready? And he's like, I guess so. He's like, whoa. This is the kingdom. Because Jesus says, will you follow me? Right. And he doesn't want to hear guess so. He wants to hear yes or no.
Yes.
I mean, in Revelation, it talked about be lukewarm, I'll spit you out.
Right.
The Matrix resurrection, red pill, blue pill. There's no purple pill.
Amen.
So we're going to go, this is Miyagi makes a deal with Daniel. It mirrors the commitment, I think, that Jesus and God asks of us as we enter into relationship and really discipleship with him.
Right.
Oh, Mr. Miyagi, I forgot to give this back to you last night.
No, you keep.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Sir, ready?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
And your son must talk. Walk on the road. Walk right side, safe. Walk left side, safe. Walk middle, sooner or later, get the squish, just like grape. Here, karate, same thing. Either you karate do yes, or karate do no. You karate do guess so, just like grape. Understand?
Yeah, I understand.
Now ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes. Let's make sacred pact. I promise teach karate. That's my part. You promise learn. I say you do. No question. That's your part. Deal?
Steal?
Yes. First wash all the car, then wax. Wax.
Wait, why do I have to wash all the car?
Remember, deal. No question.
Yeah, but
Right. Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand. Wax on, wax off. Breathe in through nose, out the mouth. Wax on, wax off. Don't forget to breathe. Very important. Wax on, wax off.
So good.
And not 5 seconds goes by after he makes that pact before he questions.
Right.
I'm reading, we're starting, new year, do new things, reading through the Bible through the year with some of my friends and engaging in this process and doing it together for a change. Normally we try to do it one person by myself. So it's a weekend still on track, but it was interesting. What I read today was about Abram. And when Abram was 75, God made a promise that you'll be a blessing. You'll have all the nations will be blessed because of you. Kings will come out of your family. And he's 75. And in 11 years passes, no kid. So they said, well, we must have to strike first, strike hard, no mercy. Here, sleep with my servant, Sarah, his wife says, and have a baby. So he goes in, they have a baby, Ishmael. 13 years pass. God says, how you doing, Abram? I'm going to change your name to Abraham. And this time next year, you'll have a baby. What about Ishmael? No. I'm going to bless him for your sake, because you're his dad. But he's not the child of promise. He's not the one of the covenant. That's going to be Isaac. You'll call him Isaac for laughter, because you're laughing at me now because you're 99 years old. Your wife is 90 years old. He will have waited 25 years. And God doesn't show up and say, keep going, or here's the date. He just said, here's a promise.
That's right.
And then it goes blank. But it was interesting to see how often I get in that Abram and Daniel-san response of, yes, God, I'll follow you anywhere. I'll do whatever you say. No questions asked. Go wash the car. What? What does this have to do with anything? Not 30 seconds goes by. Not 13 years with Abram goes by. And I find myself questioning or trying to make things work, or trying to stop being the disciple, stop being the mentored, and start trying to make life work. I like I said, I try to strike first, strike hard. It's like, oh, well, I must have got it wrong. Let me do this instead. And again, going back to your comment, you can't learn karate from a book. You can't be discipled from a book. And it's going to look like things that we didn't think it would look like.
Right. Well, the original design from the Garden of Eden was they were doing that together, naming the animals, being fruitful and multiplying, all of that stuff they were supposed to do together. And you will notice that God isn't there when they're at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It doesn't say God was walking with them to the tree. Like he didn't lead them there. So yes, it takes total commitment. This is very scriptural. This is very New Testament. You will find me when you seek after me with your whole heart. And if there's a fight and there's a battle, I'm telling you, the one way to lose a battle is to do it halfway. That's the way to lose a battle. That's the way to lose a championship game, right? And that's why you practice, Nick Saban. Like if you practice like a champion, you'll win championships. His goal is to win championships, but he knows that the solution is to practice every day like a champion.
Right.
There was one year, and I heard this story. There's one year when Nick Saban won a championship and they partied and they had spring training, a couple months later. And he says, you are not a championship team. That was a championship team. If you want a championship, it starts today. It was in the spring. But his point was like, look, we're starting over. Like it takes commitment, it takes hustle, it takes execution, it takes being a part of a team, and all of those things that make you a championship team. You have to practice that and do it all the time. All that to say is it takes that sort of commitment, and that's what he's telling Daniel. But again, that doesn't matter if there's not a fight. If we don't believe we're in a war, we're not going to disciple anybody, and we're not going to get discipled.
Because what's the point?
What's the point? It's just me, whatever I can get out of it. But when you realize the devil is after you, he's after your stuff, he's after your kids, he's after your marriage, he's after your church, he's after anything that God has given you, that God wants you to have and bless you with, the devil is after all of it. And when we realize that he would kill you if he had the chance, like he would not hesitate to end your life, end my life. And we realize we're in that sort of battle. We need armor, right? We need all this stuff. We need to learn. We need to be discipled. And that's why I said, without a fight, there's no reason to be discipled. But it also means you got to be really committed. You have to, you're either in this or not. I'm not going to waste my time. And I've done this with people who want to be discipled. I'm doing the little quote things with my fingers. I've done this with people.
They can't see the air quotes.
They can't see that. I've done this with people who want to be discipled. I say, well, here's where I'll be. Show up. Very rarely do they show up. Because my thing is, I know what I have to pass on. If you believe I have something to pass on, if this is just about you, if this is about you and your convenience, then we're not discipling. That's not discipleship. Jesus didn't say, well, let me hang out with you fishing for a couple of years and teach you. No, he said, I'm going this way. Come with me or not. But this is the only way it's going to work. And that's discipleship. And it's life on life. It's walking with me. But this is what I'm doing. If you want what I have, you got to do what I do. Right? Like this is how this works. And so this is what Miyagi realizes. Miyagi realizes, man, you can't half do this. And then the other part that I love that we have to realize is that we are training for a fight, but in the kingdom, the first thing God does is say, go serve somebody. That's the first thing he does. This is scriptural. This is who Jesus is. For Jesus did not come. Let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. That he, Philippians 2. He's God, but he came not to. Jesus said this about himself: the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And he's washing their feet. And here's my point: is that the first thing Miyagi does is say, "Okay, start washing my car." I thought we were going to learn, this is what we do. This is what all of us do when we get into the kingdom. Yes, I want to do this. I want to do this stuff for God. The same thing happened to Saul, who becomes Paul in Acts. The scales fall from his eyes and he got knocked off his horse. And the first thing he wanted to do was preach. And God said, no, you're going to hang out with Barnabas for 14 years. You're going to see compassion from Barnabas, and Barnabas was the leader, by the way. It wasn't until they split over Mark that Paul becomes a leader. Like Barnabas was the dude. And I'm saying all this to say, like, but we don't like it either. We're like, yes, God, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do this for you. And he's like, go wash that guy's toilet. What? I thought I was going to do great things for you.
I wanted to preach. I wanted to sing. I wanted to lead worship.
And he's like, you're not ready for that, because that will ruin you. If you don't have the character to stand in front of people, it will ruin you to be in front of people. So first you have to be humble. You can go through all the scriptures of, was it Joseph in the Old Testament? Oh, yeah. You're gonna be the greatest, second in whatever.
I had these dreams that you guys all suck and I'm awesome.
Now you're a slave. Oh, okay, I'm going to do what's right. Okay, now you're in jail, right? I mean, but God, the Bible says in Psalms, one of the translations is like in the prison that with the chains with Joseph, that iron entered into his soul. In other words, like, what was God doing with Joseph through all those years? Was God just mean? Is Miss Miyagi just mean? Just making you work? Because that's what Daniel ends up thinking. Daniel ends up thinking, you're selfish. You just want me to paint your fence. I've been doing all this work for you and I get nothing, back to the older son, right? You're just mean. You haven't been teaching me crap. But Joseph goes from the jail, to the second in command of Egypt, the greatest nation in the world at that time. And Daniel, in one clip, one of the most famous, amazingly written clips ever, scenes, he goes from I'm fatherless and I'm nobody and I have nothing, and he goes to wonder in a moment. Oh, he's been teaching me this whole time, and it's a revelation. It's so amazing.
Oh, Miss Spot.
What Spot? Hey, how come you didn't tell me you were going fishing?
You're not here when I go.
Well, maybe I would have wanted to go. You ever think of that?
You're karate training.
I'm what? I'm being your goddamn slave is what I'm being, man. Now, we made a deal here.
So?
So you're supposed to teach and I'm supposed to learn, remember? For 4 days, I've been busting my ass. I haven't learned a goddamn thing.
You learned plenty.
I learned plenty. I learned how to sand your decks, maybe. I wax your car, paint your house, paint your fence. I learned plenty, right?
Not everything is as simple.
Oh, bullshit. I'm going home, man.
Daniel-san. Daniel-san.
What?
Come here. Show me sand the floor.
And as you mentioned, that's a great scene. Doesn't work very well audio. To sand the floor. Wax on, wax off. Paint the fence. As you mentioned, he sees that what he's been doing all along, not everything is as seems.
Yes.
What you think Mr. Miyagi is just a Mr. Fix-It guy, he was a hero. He won some medal for valor. He was a hero. He lost his wife and his son. He's dealt with grief.
Yes.
But he knew how to fix things. He knew he was a defender. He was his advocate. As you were talking before about walking in a manner worthy of our calling, is what Paul says in Philippians 4. And what is that manner? It's humility, gentleness, patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace. That's the manner. And yeah, it looks a lot like washing toilets, washing feet, serving others. But it's frustrating because we want, even later when he's on the bow, they're out in the boat, Mr. Miyagi's fishing, and he's like, get up there on the bow of the boat and balance. You've got to find balance because you can't do it. And he's like, when do I learn to punch? He wants to learn to punch. He's like, you learn to punch when you find your balance. And the gospel is the same way. In Ephesians, Paul talks about, this is my prayer for you, that you be rooted and grounded and established in the love of God. And he's like, you can't punch. You can't take the fight to the enemy unless you're grounded, unless you've got a good, strong foundation that can't be beat. Because it will. It's all those things that the devil's after. He's after your heart. And the way that's how you get to it is through your family, through your job, through your circumstances, through your health. It's all about, man, all of my life I've been busting my ass for you. And you're here, you missed a spot. Well, where were you? You were off fishing.
Right.
And that's how we respond to God a lot.
Yep.
It's like, Abraham, 25 years ago, you said I'd have a kid, and the kid I have, you now are saying is not good enough.
One of the things that we see in that clip with Miyagi, the reason why it's such a memorable scene, and it's almost become cliche at this point. It's like so watched. It's so known. But think about what Miyagi does for him in that moment. He knows karate so well that even as a fix-it guy, he was doing karate. That even when he was fixing toilets and sinks and painting things and working his everyday job, he was doing karate. Like he knew karate, because at one point he goes, karate is not just hitting and kicking, it's the whole life. There's everything. Everything is karate. Everything is karate. And that's what God wants us to see in the kingdom. Hey, here's the sheep, here's the goats. And he says to the sheep, when you fed the hungry, you did it to me. Well, you weren't there. No, I was. And that's the awe and the wonder that you get from Daniel. He's like, oh, karate is bigger than just the fight. Now you're training for a fight, but it's bigger than that. It's something within you coming out, because he keeps saying that throughout the movie too, right? There's more karate inside you. There's more karate inside you. You got to let it out. It doesn't matter how many different moves you know. It matters as if you can get to that's within you, even if it's simple. And so there's all sorts of stuff that's going on, but just that's so important. And that's something that our fathers have to teach us, and we want to pass on. And that, hey, when we go do this thing, going to serve somebody, heaven cheers. Heaven cheers. You may not be doing it in front of 1,000 people or 100,000 people or whatever. Maybe one day you will, but you have to be satisfied first, and really only with the fact that heaven cheers when you did it. And he's trying to get him to see, and his world got so much bigger in that moment. And his mind just, exploded. And so from that time on, he trusts him. Yeah. He trusts him. And now that you know that, now let's learn some different stuff. And there's so much more in the movie that, that we can get into, but that moment and that training because a big part of it too is that Daniel, as he starts to train, he goes further and further into Miyagi's world. Right. So it's not simply that he's learning to punch in. To the degree where, as you said, Miyagi is vulnerable about his pain. God does the same thing, guys. I'm telling you, the more you train with God, the more you enter the kingdom, the more you enter his world, the more you see of heaven, to the point where God shares what breaks his heart. At some point, when you get close enough to God, he can trust you with what makes him sad. And that's when you're his friend. That's when you are, that's when you know, like you're not that you're not saved before, you're not his kid, but when you come to that moment of vulnerability with God, because God doesn't share that with everybody, but sometimes sometimes it's big, but sometimes when we start thinking about somebody, it'll be where we see the anger, we see the acting out, and God says, no, but look where that comes from. And it breaks his heart. And then we love people. We really love them, right? Yeah. And that's where part of where we go.
So as we bring this bad boy in for landing here,
we can't have a part two. No, I'm kidding.
We might. We'll probably just somehow try to figure out a way that we can do a devotional on this movie, because this seems like one of those.
This is coming out. This is the one that's coming out in February on the same website, on inspiration.org. This is one of the reasons we were talking about it, because it's coming out in February. So
next month, check out inspiration.org for Britt's full exposition on this movie.
Well, we're plugging all sorts of stuff in this episode.
It's like you got to pay more to get the podcast without ads. So what it uncovers is this deep desire in Daniel's heart and in our hearts. We want to believe someone with a father's heart is preparing us for the fight that we will face.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels a lot of times like we're just doing household chores while he's off fishing. And then he comes back. He's like, yeah, you missed a spot. And it's all challenging. Where's our heart? Where's our strength? Where's our foundation? Where's our balance? He talks a lot about balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important. And the balance, it's not about work-life balance.
Right.
But it's about going that rest of how are we reacting? How are we fighting? Are we fighting from strength? Are we fighting from rest? Because at the end, Daniel is, before sweep the leg, it was, take out his knee, and he does the flying burrito there onto his knee and blows his ACL probably. And the interesting thing was immediately that guy's like, I'm sorry, Daniel, I'm sorry.
I know.
Again,
right.
Cobra Kai's not bad guys, but they listened to a person who was leading them astray.
Right.
And he's there and he wants Mr. Miyagi to fix his knee. He's like, why? You don't have anything to prove. He's like, I got something to prove to myself. What did I prove? That I can take a beating? They knew that already. But I can't find balance unless I face my fear, not because of revenge, not because of retaliation, but because I need to prove it to myself that I'm not going to back down. Because you can't listen, you can't watch this movie without the music at the end. So as we are closing, as we are wrapping up, I want you to know that your Father sings that over you.
Amen.
You are the best around. And not in a prideful, arrogant, look what I can do, but he's telling you, you don't have to fight for anything. You have nothing to prove because Jesus did it all already. It's like you have that loving Father who's preparing you, just like Mr. Miyagi prepared Daniel. And he's inviting you into his mission, his life. He is singing, you're the best around.
Yeah.
That was why Jesus came. It was so that we could be in relationship, so that relationship could be established with the Father. Like you keep saying, Britt, I just do what my Father shows me to do. And so as we're walking into this new year, into 2022, we pray that you will experience the abundant love of the Father for you. And whatever that looks like. I can't say what that looks like.
Yeah. And just a quick question. Who are you mentoring and who is mentoring you? Because as we keep saying, this is a longing of every heart. There's a life that you have to pass on. It's literally designed to be passed on. We were designed to multiply and pass on. That's biological and it's emotional. It's spiritual too. All that to say is, as we go into the new year, relationally, who do you have in your life that has gone before you that you can ask questions? If you don't know that person, pray, look, get your eyes open, start looking for that person and be intentional about going and being a part of their life. And then secondly, who are you pouring into? Because it's both. It's not either or, it's both.
When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And the reverse is true. When the teacher is ready, the student will appear. And just remember, mentoring and discipleship does not look like a program, but it looks like living life together. It might look like washing cars. And obviously, you've got that idea of walking with humility, of saying, this is what God is providing for me now. This must be what I need. Are you ready to learn karate? I will teach you karate. God promises, I will teach you. Are you willing to learn? Are you ready to learn? with no questions. So this has been Paul McDonald and Britt Mooney talking about The Karate Kid and a little bit of Cobra Kai and a little bit of How I Met Your Mother.
Some trading places in there too.
So I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you join us next time here on the Men at the Movies podcast.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?